The Seven Ravens. A spring burst forth from a mountain. The spring turned into a stream, and on the stream a miller built a mill. He got married and had 7 sons and 1 daughter. The boys were wild, while the girl was calm. The boys were impossible to keep an eye on, but the girl always knew where she was needed most. Tuna! I cannot. Alright, fine. One day, 10 farmers arrived at the mill with the grain, and the miller didn't know what to do first. The miller's wife helped, and even their daughter, Madlenka, lent a hand, but the boys kept getting in the way, shouting over one another and only making things worse. See what you did, Tuna. You're gonna wake Leiden up. Oh, why don't you turn into a flock of ravens? The miller's wife exclaimed with impatience. At that moment, all 7 boys transformed into blackbirds, spread their wings, and vanished somewhere into the sky. Too late did the miller's wife retract her words. Too late did she wring her hands. The 7 ravens had flown away to who knows where. A year passed, and the unhappy parents still waited in vain for their sons to return. The one who perhaps cried the most for them was their little sister, Madlenka. She wept until she nearly cried her eyes out, but eventually she understood that tears would not bring her 7 brothers home. Let me venture into the world, she begged her parents. I will find them, lift the curse, and bring them home. The miller's wife turned pale and lamented. I have lost 7 sons, and now I must lose you too. However, her daughter insisted, and so her parents had no choice but to let her go. I was gonna stop right there, actually. I was thinking, I read 1 page worth of accent and then... But thank you, Tuna, for the allowance. And you're a sneaky one. I did not see that coming, but apparently Bimby did. Madlenka set off aimlessly, having no idea where to search for her brothers. She walked many days and even more nights, and when her knees were nearly giving way from exhaustion, she spotted a cottage. She stepped inside and sat on the only chair by the table. Her eyes grew heavy, her head drooped, when suddenly the door flew open and a wild man appeared in the doorway. What are you doing here? He shouted menacingly. Do you know that I am wind and this is my abode? Anyone who dares to enter will be blown away. Forgive me, Wind, Madlenka pleaded, and let me spend the night here. I've been walking for many days, even more nights. I'm so weary that I no longer see the path before me. I'm searching for my lost brothers and do not know where my destination lies. The wind took pity on the weary girl, offered her shelter for the night, and prepared breakfast in the morning. Thank you, Wind, said Madlenka, but before I take my leave, may I ask you one question? Ask away, nodded the Wind. You fly here and there, across the whole world, meeting storks and eagles in the clouds. What about 7 raven brothers, black as coal? I have not seen your brothers, mused the Wind, but my friend the Moon, perhaps he would know. Madlenka thanked him for the well-intended advice and set out on her journey once more. She walked for many days and even more nights. One evening, she found a quiet spot in the forest thicket, sat down on the grass, and waited for the moon to rise. What are you looking for here? Asked the moon upon seeing the girl at the edge of the forest. Forgive me, dear moon, Madlinka pleaded, and let me sleep here tonight. I have been walking for many days and even more nights, and I am too weary to even see the path before me. I'm searching for my lost brothers, and do not know where my destination lies. The moon took pity on the weary girl. Hiding behind a cloud, he let her sleep to her heart's content. In the morning, he even prepared breakfast for her. Thank you, Moon, Madlinka said, but before I take my leave, may I ask you one question? Ask away, nodded the moon. You traverse the sky, meeting storks and eagles in the clouds. What about 7 raven brothers, black as coal? I have not seen your brothers, mused the moon, but my friend the rain. Perhaps he would know. Madlinka thanked him for the well-intended advice and set out on her journey once more. She walked for many days and even more nights, until one evening she arrived at the foot of vast rocky mountains. However, when she tried to look around, a heavy rain began to fall. What are you seeking here? Called the rain from behind the rocks upon seeing the girl at the foot of the slope. Forgive me, dear rain, pleaded Madlinka, and let me take shelter here. I have been walking for many days and even more nights. I am so tired that I cannot see the path, and I am soaked through. I'm searching for my brothers, and I do not know where my destination lies. But you have already reached your destination, exclaimed the rain. Just keep searching. Thank you, dear rain, Madlinka had rejoiced. She had reached the end of her journey. Perhaps she would see her brothers today. She climbed the rocks, searching in every nook and cranny. Called out, her feet slipping, when suddenly she stood before a dark opening. Lowering her head, she entered the rocky cave, where 7 ravens sat around a table. Dear sister, the ravens exclaimed, joyfully flapping their black wings. How did you get here, and how did you find us? Madlinka sat at the table and began to recount how, out of her sheer longing, she couldn't get a wink of sleep. So she set out on a journey. She also spoke of the wind, the moon, the rain, and of the wish she carried in her heart. How can I save you? She asked the ravens. Where can I find help to break the curse? The ravens lowered their wings and became sad. A terrible curse haunts us. It cannot be easily undone, the eldest croaked. Tell me, little brother, how to rid you of this curse, Madlinka exclaimed. I am not afraid, and will do whatever is necessary. You'd have to sow flax, weed, and harvest it, spin it into thread, and weave it into cloth, and sew 7 shirts of the cloth, all the while not uttering a single word. Madlinka listened and remained quiet. At dawn, she set off to get some seeds in the nearest town. Along the way, she met a young man who offered her a ride. Madlinka remained silent, even though the young man was kind and handsome. The young merely shrugged his shoulder and continued on his way. Madlinka bought seeds, found a piece of land near the forest, looked up at the sky, and silently implored. Please, little wind, scatter the seeds so that soon there'll be 7 shirts for me. I'm gonna reread that because I think it rhymes. Please, little wind, scatter the seeds so that soon there'll be 7 shirts for me. The wind heard well what Madlinka silently wished for. He felt pity for the brave girl, blew, and scattered the flax seeds across the entire field. Madlinka thanked the wind, but implored once more. Please, gentle rain, have pity on me. Send down your water upon the field I see. The rain heard well what Madlinka silently asked for. Moved by the girl's fortitude, he sent down such a downpour that the flax sprouted from the ground at once. As the day turned into night, the moon rose into the sky. Madlenka looked up one last time and silently implored. Please, moon above, light up the field below, so I may soon finish the shirts for my brothers to bestow. The moon heard well what Madlenka silently asked for. He felt pity for the brave girl. The moon shone its rays on the little field, and by morning flax had sprouted, the legs of which hadn't been seen far and wide. The next day, a handsome young man passing by on a horse couldn't believe his eyes. Where did such tall flax come from when only yesterday there was nothing but fallow land? Come work for me, he offered Madlenka. The girl remained silent, though she would have loved to work for him. The youth merely shrugged his shoulders and continued on his way. Madlenka had just finished weeding, harvesting, and washing the flax when the clock in the nearby village struck noon. The young man was on his way home from the town and couldn't believe his eyes. He'd never seen such a diligent and beautiful girl. Come and be my wife, he offered Madlenka. Although her heart was breaking, the girl remained silent, so the young man just shrugged and continued on his way. Sitting down, Madlenka kept weaving and weaving, whitening, trimming, and sewing until all 7 shirts were finished. Suddenly, she heard the clatter of horse hooves, and there was the handsome young man riding down the path again. Unable to resist, he came by the forest just to see the mysterious girl once more. Noticing the 7 white shirts, he jumped off his horse and went straight to Madlenka. Give me those shirts, I'll pay you well, he said, reaching out for them while offering Madlenka some gold coins. The unfortunate girl clutched the shirts tightly in her arms, barely managing not to scream. Just then, a flock of 7 ravens appeared in the sky above them. Throw the shirts onto us, Madlenka, quickly, make haste. The girl rushed off, casting the shirts over the ravens. The young man was speechless as Madlenka's 7 brothers stood before him. The curse was lifted. Madlenka sighed with relief and turned to the young man. Forgive me for not returning your greetings and for not heeding your offers. How could a young man be angry? The mysterious girl had spoken after all, so he listened as she recounted tales of the mill, the wind, the moon, the rain, the rocky cave, and the curse that the miller's wife had unwittingly uttered. However, the 7 brothers were eager to go, impatient to return home. The young man traveled with them to ask the miller and his wife for the daughter's hand in marriage. Long ago, a spring burst forth from a mountain, turning into a stream. Along this stream, a miller built a mill, married and had 7 sons and 1 daughter. The boys grew into hard-working men and eventually all married well. The daughter was wed to a kind and handsome young man, who willingly learned the miller's craft from his father-in-law and bore him 7 sons. The boys were unruly, sometimes downright rebellious, but Madlenka knew well that an angry word is easily spoken, but much harder to recall, and so they lived happily ever after. And that is the end of this short story.